He's Australia's most wanted man and the most elusive.
This person is a murderer. He has shot to avoid apprehension, and we consider him extremely dangerous.
He was once a mere bodyguard, just a son of Turkish immigrants who moved to Australia in search of greener pastures. And when he landed in the land down under, he quickly rose to the top in the confines of the biker world.
Angelo Pandeli is a man of resilience. He's not willing to go down, and if he must, he will take others down with him.
For months now, detectives have been on his radar, observing his movements between Dubai and Turkey, but always missing him by a whisker. While this is going on, Angelo Pandeli has been secretly running the drug world, churning more than $1.5 billion every year. His pockets run deep, and he has only one goal: giving authorities a run for their money. The question is, will he succeed? When Constantino and Marika Pandeli moved to Adelaide from Turkey in the 1970s, they only had one goal: giving their unborn child the perfect life they never heard. So when Angelo Pandeli joined the world, he found his path already laid out. The parents were avid business people owning chains of pubs in South Australia. Little did they know that their plans to give him a better life would actually breed a new passion in him, becoming an outlaw. To the casual observer, young Angelo Pandeli seemed no different than any other child born to working-class immigrant parents in the small, tight-knit community of Whyalla.
His parents ran the local Sundowner Hotel in the 1970s, a cozy establishment where rowdiness and chaos was the soundtrack to Angelo's earliest years.
Yet even in those dim, smoke-stained rooms of the Sundowner, neighbors gathered like family. But he had other plans, grander passions, that would eventually lead him to the darkest crevices of the outlaw underworld. And when his parents decided to move to Adelaide, that's when all hell broke loose. Angelo quickly showed an interest in hanging out with the big boys. He'd mostly frequent local pubs and bars, and this is where he met John Pike. Pike hired Angelo to provide security against rival outlaw motorcycle club members at Heaven nightclub in Adelaide. But this wasn't just any security detail. It was a nod to the underworld, a quiet acknowledgement of his dreams and passion to rule the underworld. For a time, he became a bodyguard, rubbing shoulders with some of the most notorious Hells Angels kingpins. And that's when he decided to join the Hells Angels as a junior member.
Pandeli's association with John Pike spiked law enforcement's, especially considering the background of Pike's associates, one of whom was Anthony Sobey, a shareholder in Pike's company, with ties to the Gypsy Jokers Bikie Club.
Meanwhile, Pike's other shareholders included Melbourne businessmen with their own checkered pasts. It's this association with the big wigs of Hells Angels that catapulted Angelo Pandeli into his success as he began learning the ropes of drug trafficking. This business proved lucrative for Angelo because by 2006, he bought a mansion in Pyrmont for $2 million. Hold on to that house, as it will become important when police officers raid him. In 2006, he was found to not be a fit and proper person to engage in security services at a local pub, the Newmarket Hotel, after it emerged in court that he was paid to keep other bickies out. From there, he moved to the bright lights of Sydney. If Angelo's allegiance to the Hells Angels marked his point of no return into the underworld's black hole, it was his migration to Sydney that truly solidified his transformation into certifiable criminal royalty in the mid-2000s. Here, his sadistic ambition and cunningness allowed him to claw his way up the bikie hierarchy until he sat stubbornly upon its apex as national president after former boss Felix Lyle was jailed. He became one of the most powerful bickies in the city, known to be a regular at high-end restaurants at Star City Casino. By then, he had taken over as the gang's national president after moving interstate to set up the Hells Angels Sydney City chapter. And this is where things became even more heated. From 2006, he dived deeper into his business while still handling his presidential duties. In the entire time, he was able to make millions and millions of dollars, but he managed to avoid paying taxes. That's until 2014, when Australia's tax authorities joined forces with police under Operation Morpheus. Their mission? Crack down on criminal biker gangs. Pandeli's home in Sydney was one of the first ones to be raided for failing to file returns. The tax office had joined forces with police under Operation Morpheus, ordering him to provide income info in 2016, but Pendelli didn't comply. When they caught up with him, Pendelli admitted guilt for the tax fraud in court. However, like a true brother, the accountant took fall for the fraud, saying his tax software glitches caused Pendelli's missing return. So the judge let Pendelli off easy. No conviction was recorded because the judge believed Pendelli reasonably trusted his accountant's work.
Pendelli's case kicked off the tax office's biggest crackdown on outlaw biker gangs. Nearly 200 gang members were investigated for skipping taxes, dodging lodgements, payments, and income reporting.
The taxman slapped 11 bikers with a surprise $4 million tax debt notice. The previous year, Morpheus busted 668 suspected tax cheats linked to gangs, recovering $13.3 million in owed taxes. They also secured 193 late returns, totaling $5.9 million in over 35 prosecutions and $55,000 in fines. And that's when shit got even crazier. Pendelli worked his way up the ranks in the Hells Angels gang down in South Australia. In 2006, he took control of the Sydney branch. His power only grew after the old boss Felix Lyle went to prison. But then the cops started taking notice of his activities. They believed he was seriously involved in drug trafficking, but by 2016, he had fled Australia and went to the Middle East.
So when the authorities got wind of a drug trafficking operation headed by Pendelli, they went to his Pyrmont house and raided it.
The plan was to sneak over $250 million worth of crystal meth into Australia using a small airplane. But the American drug police seized the drugs before the plane could take off from California. They grabbed the whole load. The Aussie cops also found $2.4 million cold hard cash stuffed in a truck. They think the money was for the drug deal too. A 72-year-old airplane pilot got arrested as well before he could disappear. One cop said, Pendelli keeps a low profile, but he is a big shot in biker gangs, not just in Australia, but worldwide. Even though Pendelli spends lots of time overseas, the cops still raided his waterfront house in Sydney. They took boxes of papers and files as evidence, and he was not the only one under pursuit. At 52 years old, the former pub worker's son has undergone a grand metamorphosis into Australia's most wanted outlaw. Now operating discreetly from Turkish and Cypriot enclaves, Pendelli is the suspected new mastermind behind the billion-dollar narco pipeline flooding drugs into the country. Through an undercover underworld network stretching to Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, he has amazingly remained undetected despite controlling immense wealth and territorial power. Even his wife, Carrie, has thrived, her born-in-Bali fashion brand becoming a hit with affluent influencers. From unpromising beginnings, Angelo Pendelli has stunningly risen to rule as the era's biggest Australian crime kingpin, now known as Mr. Big.
For the law enforcement desperately trying to catch him, he is both a ghost and their ultimate open-cast mine.